The flames soared to the sky that night in 1827, painting the Virginia heavens with shades of orange and crimson visible for 20 miles in every direction. Clara Robinson had drenched the cotton fields in lamp oil, watching as her life's labor became a blazing storm of rebellion. When dawn broke over the smoldering remains of Whitmore Plantation, search parties discovered only her charred footprints leading into the dense forest, footprints that appeared to fade into legend itself. What compelled this enslaved woman to reduce to ashes everything she had been forced to build? And how did she vanish, without a trace, from one of the most heavily monitored regions in the South? Before we proceed, please subscribe to Brighten My Day, and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. The morning of September 15, 1827 began for Clara Robinson, like countless others. The plantation bell clanged through the pre-dawn darkness at 4:30, just as it had every day for the past 12 years since she was sold to Master Jonathan Whitmore at 16. Clara's calloused hands found her worn cotton dress in the gloom of the slave quarters, her fingers automatically smoothing the fabric mended so many times it resembled a patchwork quilt more than a garment. Around her, 23 other enslaved people stirred in their cramped bunks, the noise of shuffling feet and muffled coughs filling the single-room cabin housing them all. Clara had long ago learned to move silently in those precious moments before full wakefulness settled over the quarters. She cherished these minutes when her mind could travel beyond the borders of Whitmore Plantation, beyond the endless rows of cotton stretching across 800 acres of Virginia soil. In these quiet moments, she recalled her mother Josephine's voice, singing lullabies in their native Akan tongue, songs that spoke of rivers running free and people choosing their own paths under vast African skies. The memory of her mother's voice was all Clara retained from her life before the plantation. Josephine had died of fever when Clara was 10, leaving her daughter with nothing but fragments of stories about their homeland and a small cloth pouch containing seeds from a flowering tree native to Ghana. Clara had sewn that pouch into the lining of her dress near her heart, where it had stayed for 18 years. As Clara stepped outside into the humid Virginia morning, the familiar weight of the seed pouch against her ribs reminded her that she carried within herself something Master Whitmore could never own, no matter how many bills of sale bore his signature. The plantation lay before her in the pale pre-dawn light. Row upon row of cotton plants, heavy with white bolls ready for harvest. The sight usually filled her with the familiar blend of resignation and determination that had sustained her through thousands of identical mornings. But this day felt different. Perhaps it was the letter that had arrived 3 days earlier, delivered secretly by Moses, a free black man working the river docks in Richmond. The letter carried news that had spread through the enslaved underground network like wildfire across dry grass. Denmark Vesey had been executed 6 years prior, but his vision of freedom had not perished with him. Word had reached Virginia that enslaved people in South Carolina were organizing again, planning something to shake the foundations of the plantation system. Clara had memorized every word of that letter before burning it in the cook fire. The message spoke of coordinated resistance, of enslaved people across multiple states choosing the same night to strike back against their oppressors. The chosen date was September 20th, just 5 days away. The letter asked for volunteers willing to create diversions to draw the attention of slave catchers and plantation militias away from the main escape routes meant to carry hundreds north to freedom. As Clara walked toward the cotton fields with the other workers, she felt the weight of decision settling on her shoulders like a yoke. She had spent 12 years perfecting the art of invisibility, becoming the kind of enslaved person white folks scarcely noticed. She picked cotton faster than most, never talked back, and had earned a reputation for reliability, granting her small privileges, like working alone in the distant fields and occasionally traveling to Richmond, to sell vegetables from the plantation garden. But invisibility, Clara had come to understand, was itself a form of resistance. While Master Whitmore and his overseer Jeremiah Davidson saw her as just another pair of hands to harvest their crop, Clara had spent years observing, learning, and preparing. She knew every inch of the plantation's 800 acres, every path through the surrounding forest, and every weakness in the system holding her captive. The cotton fields stretched endlessly under the rising sun, each row a testament to wealth built on the backs of enslaved labor. Clara's fingers moved automatically, plucking the white bolls from their stems with the efficiency born of 12 years of practice. The cotton sack slung over her shoulder grew heavier with each passing hour, but her mind was elsewhere, calculating distances and timing, visualizing the layout of the plantation's storage buildings and drying sheds. Master Whitmore had invested heavily in the latest cotton processing equipment, building 3 large drying sheds near the main house where freshly picked cotton was stored before being loaded onto wagons bound for the textile mills in Richmond. The sheds represented the heart of the plantation's operation, containing not just cotton, but also seeds for the next year's crop and specialized processing tools. If something happened to those buildings, the entire plantation would face financial ruin. Clara had been contemplating fire for months, ever since she'd helped old Benjamin repair the roof on one storage shed. Benjamin, now in his 70s, had been born free in Pennsylvania before being kidnapped and sold south as a young man. He possessed carpentry and metalworking skills, making him valuable to Master Whitmore. But those same skills taught him material properties and how quickly certain substances could ignite under the right conditions. During their roof work, Benjamin pointed out the wooden shingles treated with pine tar for waterproofing, a process also making them incredibly flammable. He mentioned almost casually that a person could soak such a roof with lamp oil and create a fire hot enough to be seen from Richmond itself. At the time, Clara filed the information away without conscious purpose, but now it seemed Providence placed that knowledge in her path for this exact moment. The sun reached its zenith as Clara continued picking cotton, her movements mechanical, while her thoughts raced through her plan's details. The drying shed sat roughly 200 yards from the slave quarters, close enough for quick access, but distant enough that fire wouldn't immediately threaten her fellow enslaved people's lives. The buildings held enough cotton and processing materials to burn for hours, creating a blaze visible for miles and drawing every available man to fight the flames. While white folks scrambled to save their precious cotton, the enslaved people would have their best opportunity in years to slip into the forest. Clara knew the paths through the Virginia wilderness better than most, having spent countless hours gathering herbs and medicinal plants during rare, free moments. She could guide others to safety, leading them through swamplands and dense woods toward underground railroad stations carrying them north to freedom. But escape was never Clara's primary goal. She'd watched too many friends attempt to run, only to be dragged back in chains for brutal punishment or death. The system was designed to make escape nearly impossible with slave catchers, bloodhounds, and bounties, turning every white Southerner into a potential enemy. Even those reaching the North often found themselves vulnerable to kidnapping and returned to slavery under the Fugitive Slave Act. No, Clara envisioned something more permanent. She wanted to strike a blow resonating far beyond Whitmore Plantation's boundaries, something inspiring other enslaved people and demonstrating their oppressors weren't as powerful as they pretended. The financial loss from burning the cotton crop would be devastating enough, but the psychological impact would be greater. Master Whitmore and his neighbors would never again feel completely secure in assumptions about their enslaved labor force's docility. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the cotton fields, Clara made her decision. Tomorrow night, September 16th, she would act. The timing placed her actions 4 days ahead of the coordinated resistance planned for the 20th, making it appear an isolated incident rather than part of a larger conspiracy. This would protect other operations, while still creating the diversion helping enslaved people across Virginia find escape opportunities. The evening meal in the slave quarters was the usual mix of cornbread, bacon fat, and whatever vegetables could be gathered from the plantation garden. Clara ate mechanically, her mind focused on upcoming tasks. She needed to gather required materials without raising suspicion, meaning collecting them gradually over the next 24 hours from various plantation locations. The lamp oil would be the most challenging item to obtain. Master Whitmore kept strict control over such materials, knowing their potential for mischief. But Clara remembered Overseer Davidson often left supplies in the barn after working late. The man had a weakness for corn liquor, sometimes making him careless about securing valuables. If she timed her approach right, she might obtain what she needed undetected. After the evening meal, Clara went to the small garden plot behind the quarters, where she grew herbs and vegetables for the plantation kitchen. The work gave her legitimate reason to be outside after dark and cover for other activities. As she tended plants in fading light, she mentally rehearsed each plant step, identifying potential problems and developing solutions. The moon would be nearly full tomorrow night, providing enough light for navigation without a torch, but not so bright as to prevent concealment. The wind had blown from the southeast for 3 days running, meaning flames would spread away from slave quarters toward the main house, maximizing damage to Master Whitmore's property while minimizing risk to her fellow enslaved. Clara also considered the aftermath. Once fires were set and spreading, she'd have perhaps an hour before organized search parties assembled. That time needed efficient use, not for escape, but ensuring as many people as possible understood what was happening and could exploit the chaos. She planned to visit each slave cabin, sharing Underground Railroad contact information gathered over years and encouraging anyone feeling ready to make their bid for freedom. The next morning arrived with the same clanging bell and shuffling procession toward cotton fields. Clara worked with unusual intensity, filling her cotton quota by mid-afternoon and earning permission to spend remaining daylight in the vegetable garden. This gave her final preparation opportunity, checking locations where she'd hidden needed materials and ensuring everything was in place. As darkness fell over Whitmore Plantation, Clara lay in her bunk, listening to familiar sounds of slave quarters settling into sleep. She'd learned to distinguish genuine slumber's breathing patterns from those pretending to rest, a skill serving her well during 12 years navigating enslaved life's complex social dynamics. Tonight, she waited until certain everyone around her was deeply asleep before slipping silently from her bunk. The cabin's wooden floorboards were worn smooth by decades of bare feet, and Clara knew exactly where to step to avoid creaks waking bunkmates. She'd practiced this route countless times, preparing for a night like this when stealth meant the difference between success and discovery. Her bare feet made no sound crossing the cabin and easing the door open just wide enough to slip through. The September night air carried the scent of ripening cotton and distant smoke from the main house chimney, where the White family's cook banked fires for morning. Clara moved like a shadow across the plantation yard's packed earth, keeping to darkest areas and pausing frequently to listen for sounds indicating guards or overseers. Davidson had indeed been drinking that evening, as Clara hoped. She found him passed out in the barn office, an empty corn liquor jug at his elbow, and keys to the supply room hanging carelessly from his belt. Clara's heart hammered as she carefully lifted the keys, fingers trembling slightly, selecting the one unlocking the storage area holding lamp oil. The supply room smelled of leather, metal, and sharp chemical odors of various oils and treatments used in plantation operations. Clara located 3 ceramic jugs of lamp oil, each containing approximately 1 gallon of clear, flammable liquid. She also found a rope coil serving her purposes, and a small hand axe for breaching storage shed walls if necessary. Moving stolen supplies to their destination required 4 separate trips, Clara carrying 1 jug at a time to minimize sloshing liquid sound. She cached materials in a depression behind the largest drying shed, a location providing concealment while remaining easily accessible when action time came. The plantation's cotton drying sheds represented 12 years of Master Whitmore's investment and ambition. The structures were built from pine lumber, treated with pitch and tar, their roofs covered with wooden shingles sealed against moisture. Inside, hundreds of pounds of processed cotton awaited transport to market, alongside seeds for next year's planting and specialized equipment for preparing the fiber for sale. Clara had examined these buildings countless times during her years at Whitmore Plantation, initially with the detached interest of someone whose labor helped construct them. But over recent months, her observations took on more purposeful character as she assessed their vulnerability to fire and calculated the potential impact of their destruction. The wooden construction making the sheds efficient for drying cotton also rendered them perfect targets for arson. The pitch and tar treatments designed to weatherproof them would cause them to burn with intense heat once ignited, creating flames difficult to extinguish and spreading rapidly to adjacent structures. More importantly, the cotton stored inside would serve as tinder, ensuring the fire continued burning long enough for maximum damage. At 2 a.m, Clara began her plan's final phase. Working swiftly but carefully, she used the hand axe to create small holes in each shed's walls, openings just large enough to pour lamp oil onto the stored cotton. The oil's sharp scent mingled with the dusty smell of cotton fiber as she systematically soaked the most flammable materials in each building. The process took longer than anticipated, partly from working in near darkness, and partly from ensuring thorough oil coverage across all cotton and wooden surfaces. By the time she finished treating the 3rd and largest shed, the eastern horizon showed the first pale hints of dawn, and Clara knew she had only minutes before the plantation stirred. She saved the exterior oil application for last, methodically dousing all 3 buildings' walls and roofs with remaining lamp oil. The treated wood eagerly absorbed the flammable liquid, creating dark stains that would serve as accelerant once fires were lit. Clara worked her way around each structure twice, ensuring complete coverage while constantly listening for sounds indicating discovery. The ignition moment required careful timing and positioning. Clara wanted the 3 fires beginning simultaneously, creating multiple conflagration points, overwhelming any firefighting attempt, while making the exact ignition method difficult to determine. She prepared 3 torches from oil-soaked rags wrapped around pine branches, lighting them from a single source, then moving quickly to apply flame to each building. The lamp oil ignited with a soft whooshing sound, impossibly loud in the pre-dawn silence. Within seconds, flames raced up the storage shed's walls. The treated wood caught fire with eagerness, surprising even Clara, despite her careful planning. The fire spread across surfaces with a life of its own, consuming everything in its path, with hunger seeming almost supernatural. Clara stood mesmerized for precious moments, watching her rebellion act transform from plan to reality. The flames climbed toward the building's roofs with beautiful and terrible inevitability, their orange and yellow tongues licking tar-treated shingles, carrying the fire to ultimate intensity. Heat radiated outward almost immediately, forcing Clara back as temperatures rose to uncomfortable levels. The cotton stored inside caught fire within minutes, sending pillars of thick white smoke climbing into the pre-dawn sky. The smoke would be visible for miles, Clara knew, carrying her rebellion news to enslaved people across Virginia and beyond. But more immediately, it would signal to Whitmore Plantation's inhabitants that something unprecedented was occurring in their carefully ordered world. Clara moved quickly now, understanding her opportunity window closing rapidly. The fires would soon be discovered, triggering a response making further action impossible. She ran toward slave quarters, bare feet pounding packed earth as she raced to spread word of events and encourage anyone ready to exploit the chaos. The first person she encountered was old Benjamin, the carpenter, who unknowingly provided crucial flammability information about the storage sheds. The elderly man was already awake, roused by smoke smell and unusual glow visible through his cabin's single window. His eyes widened, seeing Clara approach, her face illuminated by growing flames behind her. "Child, what have you done?" Benjamin whispered, though his tone carried more admiration than condemnation. He had lived long enough to understand the witnessed significance, recognizing Clara's actions transcending simple destruction or revenge. This was a declaration of war against the system holding them captive, a refusal to accept limitations white society imposed upon their lives. Clara quickly explained her plan to guide anyone wishing escape attempt through forest paths she knew so well. Several younger enslaved people expressed immediate interest, understanding such opportunity might never come again. But others, particularly those with children or elderly relatives, recognized flight's enormous risks, choosing to remain at the plantation rather than face near-certain capture and brutal punishment. The growing firelight made concealment increasingly difficult, and Clara knew discovery was inevitable within minutes. She made final preparations quickly, gathering a small possession bundle including her mother's seed pouch and a knife hidden years earlier. The flames behind her now reached all 3 storage sheds' roofs, creating destruction roar heard across the entire plantation. The main house erupted into activity as Master Whitmore and family were awakened by fire's sound and smell. Clara saw lights appearing in the white family residence's windows, knowing organized crisis response would begin momentarily. Shouts echoed across the plantation yard as white overseers discovered the catastrophe's full extent. Davidson, the overseer, sleeping off drinking in the barn, stumbled into view, still clutching his empty liquor jug. His confused shouting added to chaos as he tried comprehending what happened to sheds representing plantation economic value's heart. Clara watched from shadows as the man ran between burning buildings, apparently trying to salvage the situation. Master Whitmore himself appeared shortly after, hastily dressed in riding clothes, bellowing orders to anyone within earshot. The planter's face reflected rage and disbelief mixture, confronting property destruction, worth thousands of dollars. Cotton and equipment, representing not just this year's profit, but his family's future prosperity foundation. The anticipated response began taking shape as riders galloped toward Richmond, summoning additional firefighting assistance and alerting authorities about apparent deliberate arson. Other messengers rode toward neighboring plantations, carrying fire news and slave unrest warnings. Within an hour, Clara knew the surrounding area would swarm with armed men searching for destruction responsibility, but Clara intended no availability for capture when search parties arrived. As chaos peaked around burning storage sheds, she slipped into forest, bordering Whitmore Plantation's eastern edge. The paths through these woods had been her refuge for 12 years, offering solitude and healing during enslavement's most difficult periods. Now those same paths would serve different purpose, carrying her from everything known toward uncertain future holding at least freedom's promise. Clara moved quickly but carefully through pre-dawn darkness, using intimate terrain knowledge to avoid clearings and open areas where pursuing riders might spot her. The forest around Whitmore Plantation was part of vast wilderness stretching across central Virginia, broken by rivers, swamps, and mountain ranges providing runaway enslaved people refuge for generations. Clara heard stories of fugitive communities living deep in these woods, sustaining themselves through hunting, gathering, and occasional raids on isolated farms and settlements. She also learned about the Underground Railroad network operating throughout the region, a loose organization of abolitionists, free black people, and sympathetic whites, providing assistance to enslaved people seeking northern freedom. Clara carried mental maps of safe houses and contact points, passed through whispered slave quarters conversations. Information, meaning the difference between successful escape and recapture. As actual sunlight's first rays filtered through forest canopy, Clara paused, looking back toward Whitmore Plantation. The fire she set continued burning with undiminished intensity, sending smoke towers high into morning sky. The sight filled her with complex satisfaction, terror, and profound sadness mixture for everything left behind. Among those abandoned were people becoming family during 12 bondage years. Fellow enslaved people sharing hopes, fears, and dreams during long nights in cramped quarters. Clara tried convincing them to flee with her, but understood why most chose remaining, rather than facing escape dangers through hostile territory. The stay or run decision was intensely personal, involving physical capability, family obligations, and individual risk tolerance calculations no one else could make. Clara respected her friend's choices, while mourning necessity forcing such impossible decisions upon all. Her own choice had built for years, gradual accumulation of small humiliations, broken promises, and witnessed cruelties, finally reaching action's inevitability point. The coordinated resistance letter provided catalyst, but underlying motivation came from deeper source. Refusal to accept her life being entirely defined by preferences of people never bothering to learn her name. Clara moved deeper into forest as morning progressed, following game trails and creek beds, making tracking more difficult for bloodhounds. She knew would soon follow her scent. Her bare feet found purchase on familiar ground, navigating dense undergrowth, and around fallen logs being landmarks during herb-gathering expeditions. Behind her, smoke from burning storage sheds continued marking location like beacon. But Clara knew searchers needed time organizing efforts and determining her flight direction. The forest offered dozens possible escape routes. Without clear tracks, pursuit would spread efforts across wide area. The sound of horses and shouting voices echoed through woods as first search parties entered forest pursuit. Clara recognized Davidson's voice among searchers, with several neighbors from adjoining plantations responding to Master Whitmore's assistance call. The men sounded angry and frustrated, voices carrying clearly through morning air, arguing which paths to follow. Clara used her terrain knowledge to stay ahead of pursuit, moving parallel to their advance line, while gradually angling northeast, where she knew the Underground Railroad maintained contact points. The searchers were handicapped by deep forest unfamiliarity and their assumption she would head directly north toward free states, when Clara planned a more circuitous route, exploiting natural obstacles and friendly contacts. The morning sun climbed higher as Clara continued her flight through Virginia wilderness, her movements growing more confident as distance from the plantation increased. She paused occasionally listening for pursuit sounds, but searchers' voices grew fainter each hour, suggesting they followed false trails or became lost in the maze of paths crisscrossing the forest. Around midday, Clara reached a creek recognized from previous explorations, a waterway masking her scent from tracking dogs, while providing a route toward the safe house network she hoped to contact. She waded into cool water gratefully, her feet sore from hours traveling rough ground, beginning to follow the creek bed northeast. The water was shallow enough for comfortable walking, deep enough to cover tracks completely, and Clara made good progress along the winding stream bed, carrying her deeper into wilderness. Fish scattered ahead of her passage. Water birds called from reeds lining banks, creating peaceful soundtrack contrasting sharply with violence left behind at the plantation. As afternoon approached, Clara began looking for landmarks indicating approach to the first Underground Railroad contact point mentioned in the memorized and burned letter. The location was described as a mill alongside a creek operated by a man named Joseph, trusted to provide fugitive enslaved assistance. The mill appeared around a creek bend as the sun began descending toward western horizon, exactly as described in underground network-coded messages. Clara approached cautiously, watching for danger signs or unusual activity indicating compromised location. But the mill appeared operating normally, with smoke rising from chimney and grinding stones sound audible within. Joseph proved a middle-aged white man with calloused hands and intelligent eyes, seeming to understand immediately why Clara appeared at his door. He asked no unnecessary questions, instead providing food, clean clothes, and information about her journey's next freedom stage. The miller had helped fugitive enslaved people over a decade, his quiet efficiency speaking of long experience. The whole county's buzzing about that fire, Joseph told Clara as she ate her first proper meal since leaving. Word is, Whitmore lost everything. 3 buildings full cotton and processing equipment. They're saying biggest fire anyone's seen here, visible from Richmond itself. Clara felt satisfaction surge at confirmation her actions achieved intended impact. Master Whitmore's cotton crop destruction would resonate beyond plantation boundaries, inspiring other enslaved while demonstrating oppressors not secure as pretended. They'd got search parties combing every forest inch between here and Plantation, Joseph continued. Bloodhounds, mounted men, rewards for capture, but looking wrong places, following cold trails, chasing shadows. By time figuring direction really went, be long gone. From here, Miller provided Clara detailed Underground Railroad network information carrying toward Pennsylvania freedom. Route involved safe houses and contact point series, each approximately 20-30 miles apart, allowing safe travel through Virginia, Maryland, without exposing to slave catchers patrolling main roads. As darkness fell, Joseph prepared Clara for journey's next stage, providing supplies and directions to Quaker settlement 2 days north. Quakers, explained, among reliable Underground Railroad allies. Religious convictions making natural slavery opponents, willing risk, legal penalties assist, fugitive enslaved. Clara left mill under darkness cover, following well-worn path used dozens freedom seekers' years. Her Whitmore Plantation departure seemed ancient history rather than less 24 hours occurrence. So completely circumstances changed brief time span. Forest paths took different character traveling unfamiliar territory, steadily moving from familiar toward completely unknown future. September nights grew cooler, autumn approaching. Clara wrapped Joseph-provided blanket. Walking darkness, guided overhead stars, made good progress night. Pausing briefly, rest-eat Miller-packed journey supplies. By dawn, Clara covered nearly 15 miles, putting considerable distance pursuit while approaching Quaker settlement territory. Underground Railroad contact proved Quaker Patterson family operating farm. Valley-surrounded forested hills providing natural concealment activities. Martha Patterson, woman perhaps 50 gentle eyes capable hands, welcomed Clara same quiet efficiency Joseph displayed, asking past questions, focusing entirely immediate needs future safety. Thou traveled far, endured much, Martha said, providing Clara hot food, clean clothing. But journey's most dangerous part still ahead. Slave catchers know northern routes, watching Pennsylvania roads, increasing vigilance. Patterson's assisted fugitive enslaved 15 years farm, becoming crucial Underground Railroad link, carrying freedom seekers deep south toward Canada, northern free states. Developed sophisticated methods concealing activities. Suspicious neighbors, law enforcement officials, eagerly collecting bounties, reporting operations. Clara spent 3 days recovering Patterson farm arrangements, made Journey's next stage. During time, word reached settlement, continuing Whitmore Plantation fire investigation. Authorities concluded arson single individual work, rather larger conspiracy, meaning coordinated resistance. Planned September 20th proceed without law enforcement additional scrutiny. News filled Clara satisfaction, confirming actions achieved intended diversion purpose, avoiding broader freedom movement detection. Sacrifice contributed larger individual escape, helping protect operations potentially freeing hundreds enslaved south. Martha Patterson provided Clara documentation, helping travel Maryland, Pennsylvania, without slave catcher attention. Papers identified free woman Sarah Johnson traveling north, visit relatives. Common enough story, not arouse suspicion, presented confidently questioning road presence. Journey's final freedom stage took Western Virginia mountains, Pennsylvania, following paths used Underground Railroad decades. Traveled mostly night, guided conductors, knowing routes, intimately navigating territory, capture meaning return, slavery, potential arson, crime, execution. Mountain paths, treacherous darkness, requiring careful attention, avoid falls, wrong turns proving fatal. But Clara found strength knowledge each step carried farther plantation system, defining adult life. Closer future, having freedom, make choices, determine destiny. Climbing Virginia mountains, Pennsylvania, Clara reflected events bringing point. Cotton storage, sheds, burning decision years, making, accumulated injustices, broken promises, finally reaching breaking point. But courage act deeper source. Refusal. Accept life entirely shaped preferences. Seeing property, rather. Human dreams, aspirations own. Dress-sewn seed pouch, constant journey reminder carrying within slavery never touch. Ancestor tradition connection, transcending bondage, temporary circumstances. Mother Ghana homeland. Stories sustained darkest enslavement periods, providing identity existing independent legal property status. Now approaching slavery freedom border, Clara understood mother's pouch seeds representing distant homeland memories more. Symbolized new growth possibility, planting beautiful soil, never known particular flowers, growing wild African forests. Whitmore Plantation Escape Individual Liberation Act, larger cultural survival renewal process, continuing long slavery institution abolished. Pennsylvania border appeared River Valley, visible mountain ridge. Clara paused, resting pre-dawn October 1st hours, exactly 2 weeks plantation escape. The Free Territory site filled her with emotions too complex for words. A relief, triumph, and profound sadness, mixture for everything and everyone left behind in Virginia. Crossing into Pennsylvania meant legal freedom under state laws. But Clara knew safety far from guaranteed. The Fugitive Slave Act enabled slave catchers operating free states. The posted capture bounty attracting professional manhunters, specializing tracking escaped enslaved people. True security required reaching Canada, or establishing new identity community protecting recapture. The Underground Railroad conductor guiding Clara across Pennsylvania, border-free black man. Robert himself escaped South Carolina slavery 20 years earlier. He understood intimately transition, bondage, freedom, psychological challenges. Learning independent decision difficulty. Years every life aspect controlled others. Freedom harder most people expect, Robert told Clara. Traveling Pennsylvania countryside, Quaker settlement, temporary destination. Not enough getting away plantation. Learning free, thinking yourself, making choices, takes time, not always easy. Clara found truth. Robert's words struggling adjust liberation reality. Simple sleep, eat decisions, required mental processes, suppressed 12 enslavement years, choices made others, owning labor, controlling movements. learning trust judgment, years forced dependence, greatest new life challenges. Quaker community welcoming Clara, Pennsylvania network settlements, assisting fugitive enslaved generations. Communities providing temporary refuge, long-term support, learning free life complexities, navigation, offering education, job training, legal assistance, helping formerly enslaved establish independent North lives. Clara spent 1827-1828 winter months, Quaker settlement, learning read, write, working community textile mill supporting herself. Skills developed 12 cotton cultivation years, proving valuable processing raw materials, feeding mill looms. Clara discovering intimate cotton fiber knowledge, making valuable employee mere exploitation property. Enslaved wage laborer transformation involved legal status more, requiring fundamental relationship work, compensation, understanding changes. Adult life first receiving labor payment. Money belonging spent according preferences, priorities. Simple Wage Spending Choice Act representing freedom. Form almost significant physical plantation escape. Long winter evenings, Clara learned reading Bible newspapers. Quakers provided settlement residence. Written word, decoding process, feeling secret language, unlocking deliberately. Kept bondage years teaching enslaved reading illegal throughout South. Each mastered word represented intellectual independence step. Tool never taken away seeking control future. Newspapers brought Clara regular Whitmore Plantation fire investigation updates, broader resistance movement, using actions cover operations. Coordinated activities planned. September 20th, taken place scheduled enslaved across Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, staging simultaneous escapes. Sabotage acts, overwhelming law enforcement. Response capacity effectively. Master Whitmore never recovered financially. Cotton crop processing facilities. Destruction. Insurance companies refused compensation. Arson caused losses. Perpetrator remaining large circumstances, suggesting plantation operations inside knowledge. 1828 spring, Whitmore forced selling remaining enslaved people paying debts, effectively ending plantation system, defining family wealth, 3 generations. Clara felt complex emotions learning former master financial ruin. Part experiencing satisfaction, seeing justice delivered profiting human bondage. Another recognizing enslaved sold. Paying Whitmore debts, suffering additional trauma family separation result actions. Resistance moral calculus, never simple. Difficult individual liberation, collective welfare trade-offs involving clear answers. 1828 spring brought opportunities, challenges Clara planning permanent free territory settlement. Quaker community provided invaluable transition freedom support. But Clara understood long-term independence, requiring establishing larger community skills, knowledge, productive use. Corresponding formerly enslaved, settled Philadelphia, Boston, New York, learning opportunities obstacles facing free Black urban North communities. Cities offered employment possibilities, educational resources, unavailable rural areas. Presented discrimination, job competition, constant kidnapping. Threat, slave catchers, operating impunity, crowded urban environments, challenges. Clara ultimately chose settling Philadelphia, drawn city, large free Black resident population, established slavery, freedom transition support networks, city major abolition movement center, organizations, Pennsylvania Anti-Slavery Society, providing legal assistance, advocacy, fugitive enslaved facing constant recapture threat federal law. Urban life transition requiring Clara developing new skills, adapting social dynamics, completely different plantation life, rural Quaker settlement winter spent. Philadelphia free Black community internally diverse, including freeborn, freedom purchased, fugitive enslaved herself, escaped bondage efforts, underground railroad assistance, different backgrounds, creating complex free black community social hierarchies, individuals looking down. Fugitive enslaved, potentially dangerous, legally free others, means security. Clara navigating tensions, carefully establishing place, simultaneously welcoming suspicious newcomers, attracting unwanted law enforcement attention community. Found textile factory employment, specializing southern imported cotton processing. Work allowing knowledge gained 12 Whitmore Plantation years, earning wages sufficient supporting independently. Irony earning freedom, processing enslaved grown cotton. Lost Clara, understanding economic independence, essential maintaining liberty. Fought hard achieving. Factory work connecting Clara formerly enslaved, sharing similar free life adaptation experiences. Challenges. Relationships becoming support network foundation, helping newcomers, urban living complexities, navigating, providing mutual assistance. Unemployment. Illness. Legal difficulty periods. Clara literacy skills acquired Quakers. Winter making valuable community organizations needing legal document reading, letter writing. Various mutual aid societies record maintaining. Volunteer work gradually evolving paid employment. Pennsylvania Anti-Slavery Society. Clara First-Hand Plantation. Life escape networks. Knowledge-making effective advocate fugitive enslaved. Anti-Slavery Society work bringing Clara contact. Prominent black-white abolitionists working ending slavery. Legal political means. Relationships exposing broader slavery. Institution attacking strategies beyond individual resistance acts, coordinated efforts, aimed changing laws, social attitudes, supporting human bondage. Clara story, becoming abolition movement, propaganda efforts, dramatic escape. Whitmore, Plantation, destruction serving enslaved resistance, self-liberation capacity, powerful symbols. Speaking meetings, rallies throughout Pennsylvania, New York, sharing experiences, audiences little direct slavery. Realities, knowledge, political support, crucial advancing legislative change. Speaking engagements emotionally challenging Clara, requiring reliving traumatic experiences, maintaining composure, necessary, delivering effective political arguments. Understanding personal testimony, carrying weight, abstract moral arguments, matching providing concrete slavery, brutality, resistance, courage required examples. 1829 progressing Clara, beginning receiving Whitmore Plantation fire investigation, continuing search, arson responsible reports. Authorities never stopped looking. Trail grown, cold months escape since. Bounty hunters still circulating description law enforcement agencies throughout region. Capture reward remaining substantial motivating, continued locate efforts. Persistent recapture threat meaning Clara remaining constantly vigilant security. False names using. Recognition situations. Avoiding identified authorities. Someone. Assumed identity, living stress taking psychological toll. Deep relationships forming confidently. Future planning discovery, resulting immediate slavery. Return, difficult making. Despite challenges, Clara continued meaningful Philadelphia life building, establishing respected free black community member, contributing broader slavery. Struggle abolition movement work. Particular satisfaction finding, assisting fugitive enslaved, arriving city support, guidance, freedom, transition, navigating. Seed pouch accompanying Clara throughout escape, remaining clothing sewn, mother ancestral homeland, stories possibility, creating beautiful new soil, constant reminder. 1830, approaching Clara, beginning planning, mother pouch seeds, small garden boarding house, living behind planting. Finally, darkest enslavement days made promise fulfilling. those seeds planting act representing mother memory. Honoring more, Clara confidence finally found soil, putting roots. Fear uprooted control beyond forces symbolizing. Those seeds growing flowers, Pennsylvania soil blooming kind first. Clara herself. Freedom resistance, new possibilities, never existed before creating. The Garden Project connected Clara, Philadelphia, free Black community members, sharing cultural traditions, preservation, urban environment, beauty spaces, creation interests. These relationships deepening city belonging sense, providing plants, agricultural techniques, knowledge, sharing opportunities. Sustained bondage years. 1830, September escape anniversary. Approaching Clara reflected 3 freedom years, brought life transformations, frightened young woman fleeing, Whitmore Plantation, darkness evolved, confident justice. Advocate speaking regularly, hundreds people, audiences. Story inspiring risking everything liberty chance. Actions, financial social impact, rippled Virginia boundaries beyond contributing, growing enslaved resistance. Possible white Americans, slavery institution inherently unstable awareness. Whitmore Plantation fire, becoming resistance folklore. Part slave quarters throughout South told story. Individual courage, meaningful oppression system, blows striking evidence. But Clara understanding personal liberation, incomplete millions. People bondage throughout American South remaining. Anti-slavery society, work larger movement. Universal emancipation, achieving legal political means part progress, remaining frustratingly slow. Dedicated activists. Efforts country across despite. Early 1830s political climate, increasingly slavery question, polarized southern states, adopting restrictive enslaved people. Treatment. Governing laws, northern states, moving gradually complete abolition toward. Clara story becoming evidence. Abolitionists, immediate emancipation, arguing gradual approach. Moderate politicians favored using part. Clara memoir publication 1831, marking another fugitive slave, public figure transformation milestone. Book white abolitionists, assistance refining publication prose, providing plantation life, underground, railroad network, facilitating escape detailed accounts. Memoir becoming northern cities, bestseller, generating. Clara financial independence, slavery, realities, awareness readers. Little direct institution knowledge increased. Memoir, success increasing. Clara bounty hunters, danger, clear public identity. Location record now having. Forced additional security precautions, taking daily routines, varying predictable patterns, avoiding kidnapping attempts, professional slave catchers, operating free states throughout vulnerable making. Despite risks, Clara continuing speaking engagements, advocacy, work, visibility, successful, fugitive enslaved person, resistance form, those claiming Black people, self-determination, intellectual achievement, incapable against itself, understanding. Articulate presentations, obvious competence, racist stereotypes, slavery institution, supporting challenging audiences, human potential, racial categories, transcending concrete evidence, providing. Years followed personal fulfillment, ongoing challenges, Clara establishing abolition movement, prominent voices won herself. Married another, formerly enslaved South Carolina. Escaped partnership, shared experiences, common slavery, ending political action, community, organizing commitment, based creating. Couple children having decision future faith act, representing freedom, preserved expanded pro-slavery forces, continuing threats despite belief. Clara son 1834 born, freedom only, knowing forward resistance traditions. Mother embodied adapting circumstances, challenges new carrying. 1830s progressing, Clara watching satisfaction abolition movement momentum throughout North gaining. Driven partly formerly enslaved testimonies herself, demonstrated slavery. Institution morally wrong, practically unsustainable own lives through. Underground railroad network, escape, facilitating continued growing thousands. People freedom, path, pioneered following helping. Whitmore Plantation fire, successful resistance symbol. Enslaved communities throughout South remaining story generations, past overwhelming oppression against meaningful victories, achieving individual courage evidence. Clara name legendary, never seen face. People representing liberation possibilities, hope, darkest bondage periods, sustaining becoming. But Clara herself, dramatic escape symbolism beyond. Moved slavery, sustained resistance, supporting institutions, relationships, building patient work, focusing. Abolition movement contributions, measured spectacular cotton fields, fire setting, moment years, advocacy, education, community building, Philadelphia. Arrival followed, just not. Enslaved person, free woman, public advocate, transformation, journey, generation. People opportunity, complete, few representing. Clara success, growth achievement, potential, bondage held every person. Existing capabilities, constraints. Slavery imposed without developing opportunity, given demonstrating. 1840s approaching Clara freedom decade back looking knowledge. Whitmore Plantation cotton fields. Burning decision, vindicated everything followed. Destruction, moment. Construction, life foundation, becoming support resistance networks. Building continued story, ended long after. Mother pouch seeds, Pennsylvania soil taking root. Indeed, producing flowers. Summer blooming past future connections reminder. Previous generations, struggles available possibilities, courage seizing those between. Clara Garden, community gathering place. Becoming formerly enslaved. Stories, strategies, sharing growth, symbolizing own humanity toward continuing evolution, nurturing space. Whitmore, Plantation, fire setting, Virginia forest, vanishing woman, Philadelphia, reappearing human spirit, slavery, destroying proof, living, becoming. Resistance, oppressive circumstances possible, individual courage, acts on justice, liberation, larger movements contributing even. Clara Robinson story. American freedom ultimately built foundation part, becoming bondage, liberation journey. Dreams, aspirations, limitations, imposed, accepting, refusing people. Generations, inspiration, serving. 1827, Virginia, skylighting flames. Clara, future enslavement years imagined, never toward carried indeed purpose. Influence life. Black people, bondage suited only every claim. Lie proving. Whitmore Plantation, vanishing story, and beginning rather, moment else's property being stopped fully becoming process began. Late 1840s, challenges, opportunities bringing north-south tensions, western territories, slavery, expansion escalating. Clara Center increasingly heated institution future debates, once body-soul ownership claimed finding. Memoir, several languages translated internationally, circulated story, human rights, slavery, democratic principles, compatibility, global conversation, part making. European abolitionists, Clara London, Paris conferences, speaking inviting American slavery, first-hand testimony. International pressure campaigns, United States, diplomatically isolating, addressed liberty, stated principles, bondage, practice, contradiction, until crucial evidence providing. 1848, speaking to her Clara, international figure, emergence influence, American political discourse, boundaries far beyond extending marking. Europe, traveling experience, racial inequality, social justice, addressing approaches. Different, exposing lasting change, achieving strategies. Perspective, broadening. Britain Parliament members meeting empire throughout slavery. Abolition successfully campaigned. Coalition building political pressure lessons. Learning later, American circumstances applying. French intellectuals, activists, Clara revolutionary social transformation theories, individual resistance, collective action, relationship, thinking, challenging, introducing. Parisian salons, conversations helped personal story, broader oppression, liberation patterns, specific American slavery context, beyond global human dignity. Self-determination struggles, encompassing, connecting understanding. International attention. Clara receiving American bounty hunters' danger, increased financial rewards, silencing testimony. United States reputation, international forums. Damaging someone, desire. Motivated now, also. European abolition societies provided bodyguards, traveling situations, kidnapping, assassination, vulnerable, avoiding extensive precautions. Taking. 1849, Philadelphia return. Clara international prominence, American abolition movement role, transformed discovering. Country effective speakers, organizers won recognized now credibility, black-white audiences, broad coalitions, political change, achieving necessary, uniquely valuable making. 1850, Fugitive Slave Act passage, Clara safety. Thousands formerly enslaved North, living direct threat representing. New law federal officials, fugitive enslaved, capture return, assisting runaways, accused jury trials, testify behalf, right, denying requiring. Legislation effectively. Slavery reach free territory, extending north, black person kidnapping. Enslavement, vulnerable making. Clara threat responding. Fugitive enslaved new law enforcement, protecting resistance networks, organizing helping. Community leaders, safe houses, legal defense funds, communication systems. Slave catching operations, northern cities, opposition rapidly mobilizing, establishing working. The resistance efforts required, Clara drawing upon skills developed, fugitive years all. Concealment communication escape routes, knowledge applying fate, fought hard, escape, avoiding others, helping. Work, dangerous, anyone caught assisting fugitive enslaved people, severe federal penalties facing. But Clara, understanding own freedom meaningless, extended others, remained recapture vulnerable if not. 1850s, increasing violence, bringing slavery, conflicts, political debates, armed confrontations, territories. Kansas, pro-slavery, anti-slavery. Settlers pitched battles. Region future fighting from spreading. Clara watching developments, growing concern, understanding slavery. Question, peaceful resolution, becoming less likely positions. Both sides hardened irreconcilable opposition. Beginning receiving Underground Railroad contacts throughout South reports. Enslaved people, movement activities, increasing restrictions about. White authorities, growing resistance, harsher laws, brutal punishments, responding escapes. Clara success, prompting plantation owners, security measures, preventing similar incidents, investing heavily. Making people freedom. Path pioneered, following more difficult. Despite challenges, Underground Railroad network continued growing. 1850s, throughout Clara, increasingly important role. Multiple states, across operations, coordinating playing, escape routes, safe houses, reliable contacts, knowledge, making complex operations, moving large groups, bondage, freedom detection authorities, avoiding planning invaluable. Work requiring Clara frequently traveling Northeast Midwest throughout visiting formerly enslaved settled communities, support networks, newcomers, free life, adapting, assisting, establishing, helping. Trips allowing slave-catching operations, law enforcement activities, fugitive enslaved people, security, threatening intelligence gathering. Clara Son resistance activism. World immersed growing up early age, ongoing slavery. Struggle, family role, effort. Learning. Making sure history. Pennsylvania brought understanding, preparing future justice. Equality, fight, continuing to find, mother life requiring. Boy showing early learning, leadership aptitude qualities. Clara, nurturing responsibilities. Freedom, privileges, came understanding, ensuring. Wanted sacrifices, liberty securing. Made appreciating skills, knowledge. Freedoms, others. Bondage remained expanding, necessary developing. Late 1850s, Clara radical abolition movement elements. Contact, bringing including activists. Concluded slavery. Ended armed resistance. Peaceful political action rather through. Found torn individuals. Courage, respect, concerns. Violent confrontation. Federal government, Southern militias. Potential consequences between. John Brown execution, Harper's Ferry, failed raid 1859, following tensions. Clara Brown slavery, ending commitment, admiring approach, tactical wisdom, questioning, crystallizing. Understanding Brown actions. Slavery debate sides, both galvanized compromise, difficult, inspiring aggressive resistance forms, considering making. Clara Brown execution response, increased efforts, enslaved people, freedom, own efforts. Underground Railroad assistance, achieving stories, document, preserve form taking. Recognizing testimonies, future generations. Slavery institution, challenged, ultimately defeated understanding, crucial being. Resistance stories, collecting, preserving project Clara North, throughout traveling formerly enslaved, various circumstances, bondage, escaped, interviewing, leading. Each story, slavery experience, different aspects, revealing liberation, achieving creativity, courage employed seemingly impossible odds, despite demonstrating. Interviews providing Clara broader own story. Perspective, Wetmore, Plantation, dramatic escape, larger resistance patterns, slavery, experience earliest days, characterized, fitting, understanding, helping. Rebellions, escapes, sabotage, acts, suppressed, forgotten learning. Own actions, struggle, long tradition. Recognition, remembrance, deserving part, understanding. Abraham Lincoln election, 1860. Secession crisis, Clara long anticipated triggering. Southern states, Union withdrawing single Southern state. Winning elected president, accepting rather moving. Clara developments, hope, apprehension. Mixture, watching. Coming conflict, slavery. Question finally resolving enormous costs. Resolution requiring fearing understanding. Fort Sumter. Bombardment. April 1861. Civil War beginning. Clara belief slavery, American democratic principles indefinitely coexist, not vindicated ultimately marking. War work, throwing Union forces. Support, organizing fugitive enslaved people. Northern lines, protection. Freedom, seeking, fleeing, assisting efforts, continuing. War years, Clara massive liberation scale. South across finally occurring face bringing Union armies advancing enslaved people, plantations thousands fleeing. Individual resistance acts pre-war period characterized mass exodus. Confederate authorities prevent control capacity, overwhelming now supplemented being. Clara war work, focused helping federal government policies, dealing formerly. Enslaved enormous population, assistance, protection, Union forces seeking developing. Bondage, freedom transition. Experience, making valuable advisor programs. Freed people, independent lives. Union armies, controlled territory. Establishing, helping designed. Lincoln, September 1862, issued preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. Clara worked toward everything vindication representing 35 life years enslaved. Freedom-seeking universal emancipation, advocate first as. Document promised, rebellious states enslaved all. January 1, 1863, free declared effectively institution legal basis, once Clara body-soul ownership claimed ending. Clara, thousands people northern cities throughout gathered official emancipation. Proclamation New Year Day, 1863 issuance, celebrating among. Moment decade struggle countless individuals, bondage legitimacy, challenging everything, risked culmination representing. But Clara, understanding legal emancipation, genuine equality, justice formerly enslaved achieving longer process, beginning only. Reconstruction integration, challenges abolition, movement, characterized sustained effort, courage, kind, same requiring equitable society freedom, promise fulfilling building task applied now. War final years, Clara, Virginia, return opportunities, relief efforts, newly freed people areas, once held bondage, assistant aimed part, bringing. Richmond region back trip emotionally overwhelming. Clara, landscapes communities. Whitmore, Plantation, years, powerful memories evoking encountering. Plantation itself, war abandoned buildings, disrepair, falling enslaved, labor, generated wealth, institution, created disappearing along. Clara burned cotton storage, shed ruins. Standing 36 years earlier, journey desperate resistance moment. Current recognized leader movement, slavery, abolition finally achieved carrying reflecting. Enslaved community surviving members, bondage 12 years. Family during seeking. Finding area remained others, south. North scattered relatives, opportunities search across. Reunions, bittersweet survival, freedom, joy, liberation before died. Grief, slavery, institution lost years. Sadness marked. Clara, Virginia, return also newly freed people, transition freedom decades earlier, confronted same challenges many facing story-sharing opportunities providing. Liberty-associated obstacles, possibilities, testimony, audiences. Bondage, constraints without lives become imagining beginning, just special weight carrying. Lincoln, April 1865, assassination, Union, victory, slavery, end, celebration. Shadow casting, Clara abolition. Leaders, successor, wartime administration, characterized, justice equality. Commitment, maintain worrying. Reconstruction challenges, war years, sacrifices, equitable society. Foundation truly created testing. Clara advocacy. Work, Reconstruction period throughout formerly enslaved education. Voting rights, economic opportunities, focusing now continuing. Political freedom, practical resources, independent lives, building American society fully participating necessary, meaningless understanding. Freed people, schools establishment, Clara primary concerns, late 1860s, government agencies, private organizations, educational opportunities, enslaved people. South throughout systematically denied creating, working, becoming. Adult year reading, writing, learning, own experience, literacy, acquiring enforced ignorance, years after rewards, challenges special insight giving. Clara memoir, Reconstruction period throughout new audiences, finding Americans enslaved experiences, understanding process institution finally abolished seeking. Book new editions, wartime activities updates, newly freed. People, challenges establishing society, place rights, divided deeply. Remained observations including 1860s end, Clara early 60s life, American slavery, antebellum peak, violent abolition civil war through spanned reflecting finding, impossible reality seeing, lived bondage, built society transformation, equality, dignity, people race regardless, formally recognizing witnessing. But Clara understanding genuine justice equality, achieving work, incomplete slavery. Ending fought those vigilance activism continued requiring. Whitmore Plantation cotton fields burning, begun resistance, new forms, ongoing challenges, formerly enslaved descendants, facing addressing adapted, continuing needing. Clara legacy measured escape, dramatic moment, decades, patient work, support, resistance, networks, abolition, Possible making, helped building followed, just not. American freedom rested foundation part, becoming story-proof. Individual courage, transformative social change, sustained collective action, combined, contributing. Clara life, final decades, entering Virginia, cotton fields, Philadelphia, lecture halls beyond, carrying journey, satisfaction back looking. Forest oppression symbols, fire setting, vanishing, woman, resistance, power, redemption, possibility, living testament reappearing. Future generations' justice equality struggle continuing helped advance inspiration serving life.